Tracy's here to help us think about inclusive church. The PCC meet tomorrow, isn't it? Where we will vote whether or not to join inclusive church. The movement of the PCC is definitely very much one in favour, and we've been consulting and talking about inclusivity and how God loves everyone he's made in a special way and being part of one family for quite a while now. But it'd be nice to have a bit more specifics on how it works out in practice at Tracy's church. So Jason, do you want to tell us where you've come from?
I've come from
Tracy?
priest in charge at St James's in Bolton Road, which is about a mile from the city centre of church, and that's the inclusive church. Of course, I've been the minister for Sorted for 2003,
Gosh.
and 2008 minister, but worked with Sorted. We established it in 2003, and we've always been inclusive, Sorted. So that's me, really.
So we have a list of questions that people have been sending to Rob and putting in the box, and if you don't mind answering them, that'd be brilliant.
No pressure there.
No pressure to Tracy. So the first question is, what is inclusive church? Is it a course that we go on? Do we get training? What is inclusive church?
So inclusive church is a movement that you join, and they offer resources, and we've not done any training with them, but it's a way of churches who want to be inclusive being able to support one another emotionally, prayerfully, and the resources that they put out there, things that help you to think through what does it mean to be inclusive and how you put that into practice in your church. So that's what inclusive church is for everybody. So it's not just for pockets of inclusivity. And churches fall into this trap, don't they? That actually we want to be an inclusive church, but we don't, but on our terms, but actually it's not on God's terms. So when we think about what does God want, and what do we want as a church, and how are we going to offer this space to be a safe space for people, then you have to look at the whole spectrum of inclusivity and not just be selective of who you want to come because you like them and they tick the boxes and they've got plenty of money.
And they've got plenty of money. Goodness. So one of the questions we've had is, should we not be concentrating on the gospel and not inclusive church stuff?
Well, I think inclusive church is the gospel. So there are two commandments that Jesus gives us, and that's what we looked at St James's. One is love the Lord your God with all your heart, and all your mind, and all your soul, and everything that you've got. And the other is love your neighbour as yourself. And I was just reflecting when we were singing that song, thinking, who is my neighbour? Who is your neighbour? Who is your neighbour? And for Jesus, the example is the Samaritan, the person that you despise the most, the person that you don't get along with, the person that you don't agree with. That's the person who Jesus wants in this church to worship. But how acceptive and receptive are you as a church to include those people right across the board? And so that, for me, that's what the gospel says. Love your neighbour as yourself. So the question the PCC need to ask themselves for St James's and here is, who is our neighbour? And how are we going to be? What is God saying to us as a church, and what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
What is God saying to you as a church, and what are you going to do about it? Or are you just going to worship in a bubble and then die? Because that's what will happen. The king is dead, long live the king. That's what will happen. And so we need to have a way of creating a safe space that includes people where they feel safe. Now, becoming an inclusive church, you're not going to have a floodgate of people coming in, but what you are saying to the outside world and to certain communities is, we welcome you because Jesus welcomes you. And we want to share this amazing, if we are sat here and we are thinking we have got eternal life, and Jesus says, the man who finds the treasure sells the whole field for that treasure. Our treasure is eternal life. What are we doing about it? Are we just talking to one another about it over a cup of coffee? Or are we out there saying actively, we want to invite anybody and everybody through? Come all ye vagabonds.
Thank you.
I learned that song here, by the way, 5 years ago.
It's one of my favourites.
Just saying. But we sing it, don't we? Come all ye vagabonds. We don't believe it. we sing it, don't we? And we clap and we shout up and down and we jump about and we wave our arms. But actually, how practical is that for somebody coming into church who's got autism?
Do you think there are fears that people have about inclusive church?
Yeah, I do. I think people are prejudiced. But we all are, because we're not Jesus. Well, I'm not Jesus. So if I've upset anybody and I say something at a turn, and it might be a vicar's wife, whatever, if I upset you, then I apologise now, because I can only be me. I can't be you. We can't be what somebody else is. But we can have an understanding of how people work. So, neurotypical people think differently from neurodiverse people. And when you've got neurodiversity, it's your normal. It's normal to have ADHD and be wanting to walk about. It's normal to have autism and want to fiddle and play with stuff and whatnot. It's not normal. And so, of course, we judge people, because we do, don't we? But actually, do you know what? God is the judge. The ultimate is we all have to stand before God and say, yes, we were a part of that decision making, and we tried to include everybody. Or yes, we were part of that we really didn't want to go down that road. And we all have to stand before God and be accountable for those decisions that we make. And the thing is that it affects people, right? So the decision that you make tomorrow at your PCC affects people. It don't affect church. Church will carry on regardless, won't it? You still have your service next week. Vicar's still here, right? But it'll affect people, the decisions that you make, and that's really important, because Jesus is for everyone, not just for church.
Thank you. On that note, about what we might do to include people and how that might work, one of the questions was, will services be changed to suit other people's needs? And maybe, have you done that at all at James's?
So in terms of changing services structurally, we haven't changed anything. Mm-hmm. And that's down to your vicar anyway, if he wants to change the times or if he wants to change the worship that you use and all that jazz, liturgy and all that, that's down to your vicar, right? We haven't changed anything structurally, but we have implemented small things in our services that makes inclusivity practical for people coming in. Because it's no good saying, we're an inclusive church, and now you can sit there and you can stand when we stand and you can sit when we stand and you can do all of those things that we do, right? Because the person coming in, they might not know that. So what we've done is, for autistic people, we've put little dinosaurs throughout our building. And for the neurotypical person, you wouldn't even know they were there. But for the people, or you'd be wondering why they're there. For the autistic person, they'll know how many colour orange, how many colour green, how many colour white, how many colour black, all the rest of it purple. And we've also got little Jesuses that are throughout. We've got some little Jesuses at Easter, and we've put them about. So that's really important for them. For ADHD people, we have refreshments throughout our service. So most typical churches have refreshments at the beginning of the service or the end of the service. We have ours throughout the service. We have a table. We have a team of people. We have a team of people who replenish the pots that we have. We have these pot things, the flask things that they use, but people who cannot sit still, we're quite happy for them to wander about. This gives them an excuse to wander about and feel safe and feel loved, so they can go get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever. And so we've allowed that to happen, and so there's little things that we've implemented.
Sort of tweaking it, isn't it? Yeah. Noticing and tweaking.
It's knowing your context, so it works for us. You have to find out what your context is. But if you know that you've got somebody coming in, I mean, I've got a curator who's got ADHD, and she's quite open about that. She's absolutely wonderful, and she's taught me loads of stuff. So curators are supposed to learn from incumbents, but it's the other way around for me. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant because I've been introduced into a world of thinking that I have never thought of before. So at St James's, we've been able to implement things because we know that that's what makes those people tick. And at the end of the day, if we make people welcome and they feel safe, then we can introduce Jesus. And what's the intention? Is the intention just to make people feel safe? No. Is the intention to change all the services and change things around so people feel comfortable? No. The intention is you do those steps in order to share Jesus. Yes!
Absolutely. Fantastic. You won't get them coming in. People will not come in. And that's one of the things I was going to say. How is it, have you found people have started coming to your services that haven't maybe come before?
Yes, so our church doubled in 18 months.
Our church doubled in 18 months.
It doubled in 18 months. And one of the reasons for it doubling is that we joined the all-inclusive church. And what that means is you get put on a register. You pay a nominal fee a year. It is nominal, really. And it means that people moving into the area look at the inclusive churches in their area. And St James's is an all-inclusive church. There's us and the Baptist church in Shipley, in this area. And people come because they know you've got to go through certain steps in order to be accepted. You have to apply. It's not a given.
No.
There's no given. It has to be. You have to apply for it. But the way that we did it is we asked the congregation a show of hands how many people actually wanted to go down this road, and we got a majority of, well, everybody put their hand up apart from one couple, and the PCC then agreed because we had something. The congregation informed the PCC basically. Then the PCC said yes, and then we looked at it more seriously, and then at the next PCC meeting we started applying, and we did a process.
But it becomes a signpost, doesn't it, to people who are looking for a church, that they'll be somewhere where they at least will feel safe and welcomed and included, whereas they may not be sure about another church until they've tried it.
It's brilliant here, isn't it? You know, I've just been sat here this morning thinking, you're going to start a course on Tuesday. Isn't that a fantastic stepping stone to invite people in? Rather than expect people to, because that door's really scary, you know, for people to just come in. So, and we do it on a Thursday night, but I was thinking, do you know what? We're just doing a series on prayer and discipleship one, but we might just nick your idea and do that. Because that's amazing, doing that for mental health, and then, you know.
You'll hear more about this in a minute, the sanctuary course. We'll make sure you're all aware of that at the end. One of the questions we have was, did you lose many people?
No, we didn't lose any people. We lost, the elderly people have all stayed with us. We had one couple that didn't agree with it, and they've moved on. And they moved on because they just thought that inclusivity just meant same-sex marriage. They didn't really understand it's a whole spectrum of things, and that's just a tiny bit of the whole thing. And God loves everybody anyway, so they've moved on, and we've blessed them. You know, it was amicable. You know, they just couldn't worship with us any longer, and that's fine. But it was just one couple, and we've gained 60 people. So
well. So one of the questions that's been sent in, actually along that note, is when St Wilfrid's Church goes all-inclusive and trans people come to church, would we have to use their pronouns, e.g. they, them? Is that one of the sticking points, do you think, for that?
It's not a sticking point at all. It's just a sticking point if you make it a sticking point, isn't it? You know, if you went into a shop and you said, my name's, you know, Reverend Lizzie, whatever, you know, do you want to be known by Reverend or not? It's just the same. Do you want to be known by Mr. and Mrs.? Do you want to be known by she or he or whatever? Yeah. At Sorted, we've had trans through Sorted for the last 15 years. And we've had trans both ways. We've had a guy that came that wanted to be a girl, and he were a girl for 5 years, and then he wanted to be a boy again, so with a different name. So we've gone the full circle with somebody. We've gone where people have come and they've been trans and they've trans right through adulthood, and basically they're just known by the name. It's never been an issue for us. I don't think you should make that a sticking point. I think that's just, if somebody wants to be known by he or his, well, call him he or his. What's it got to do with... What difference does it make what you call somebody? Call them by the name. John or Jane.
So Tracy. Or are you Reverend Tracy?
Just Trace.
Just Trace. Will St Wilfrid's Church be using inclusive... Oh, this might be more for Rob, actually. Will St Wilfrid's Church be using inclusive church prayers for all services? Have you used special prayers, Tracy?
No.
Rob, will be using anything? I don't know what they are.
No.
What that really means, but...
No, there aren't inclusive church prayers. We use Church of England prayers, apart from when we say intercessions, and somebody stands up and has written them themselves.
Yeah.
And that will continue, and I hope that our prayers are inclusive because we're praying for everyone. Yeah. Again, there might be a question lurking in there about whether or not we'll be doing the prayers for blessing of same-sex marriages.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what it might mean.
Which you wouldn't be doing every week. We still can't do that as a separate standalone service. I will happily bless same-sex marriages as soon as I'm allowed to do so, and that will be my choice, and we'll have to work that out with PCC. But that's not on offer just yet. So, certainly not weekly.
Part of your service, if it came as part of your service.
You could do it as part of the service, yeah.
Look, sorry, I just realised when I was sitting next to you, we're feeding back there.
My feeling on that, Rob, is that if your PCC is wanting to go all-inclusive, you're not going to have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with it. And I've got gay people in my congregation, so I don't have an issue.
Okay. What's the best thing that the Inclusive Church Network has given? Chocolate biscuits. The best thing about Inclusive Church is chocolate biscuits.
Go on then. What is the best thing
What's the best thing
about Inclusive Church
that you found?
I think the best thing for me, is that we have a team of welcomers, and they're really, really good. We sit with people, sit alongside people. What really, floats my boat is that we're able to share Jesus. Now, sharing Jesus is different with different people and in different contexts. But, one mustard seed is all it takes. One mustard seed. And that person that comes in that doesn't believe in God is the best person that you'll ever get in your church. The person who comes into church who says they believe in God and they've got all the preconceived ideas about God, it's really difficult to get alongside. The person that doesn't believe in God but is asking lots of questions but feels secure and safe and in an environment where they can ask those questions, that's the person of peace, and that's the person that we work with the most. And it just is such a joy to see people journey. I see the journey. It's great. Journeying with people from nothing to then standing in front of church and saying, I feel I belong here. And it's belonging first before behaviour. It's got to be.
And the belonging comes through people seeing that you are a church that's marked out specifically, that says, whatever it is, we will welcome you.
Yeah.
Whatever you feel that you're different or that you feel you can't access church. We've taken that boundary.
They make me laugh, the families. When we have baptisms, it's so funny. We have these baptisms and all these kids are running around, and parents, you can see their faces are like so strange and anxious, and I'm just sat up front thinking, I'm laughing my head off really. And I'm thinking, just let them run. Yeah. Just let them. They're only going to be 4 for 1 year. Then they're going to be 5 and growing up. Just let them run around. It's safe. They can't harm themselves. Just let them be who they are. And then that gives them an impression. And who knows that later on they are going to come back when they're older. Because that's the impression that they've got. What impression is this church giving to young people and children and people who are neurodiverse coming through those doors? That's the question.
Do you want to take the questions out to the congregation? Has anybody got a burning question they'd like to ask? Rob has a microphone.
What is the cost of joining Inclusive Church? How much would it cost the church to...
I checked this one. I know we have to make a voluntary donation of between £5 and £500 per year. So we get to choose.
It's whatever the PCC set as target for. We pay £500 because we absolutely went in for it full. But you can pay anything from £5 upwards. It's not a big cost, it's nominal, but it has a massive impact.
I'm guessing the resources that they have are
well
worth having.
So it needs to be reasonable because you're covering the cost of resources.
Yeah.
This may be a question, but I'm a bit confused. Do we not welcome everybody and anybody anyway? That kind of church already?
Yes, I would say we are. I suppose we need to separate this. It's not, the question before us is not should we be an inclusive church, because I think we are and we should, right? The question is, should we join the organisation Inclusive Church with capital C, and if you do that, you sign up, you pay, they send you resources to help. So there's two different things, and they will. I think what we're about. We've already decided we're an inclusive church. We've been welcoming since I got here. Everybody always feels great when they get here. It's about us saying, is joining this organisation a way that will help us do that even better, and have resources to go. Who are we not including? How do we How do we do that? So, yeah, there's kind of two things. Should we be inclusive? Yes. And if you don't think we should, come and have a word with me. Awkward. But if we do, how is this the organisation? Does that make sense?
It's almost like a sort of stamp of approval that you get a little sign and it goes in a register. So people looking for new churches, if they're looking for something where they might feel a bit more welcome, will go, oh, they've got an inclusive church, so that means they'll be okay for the fact I'm deaf or a person who's gay or whatever it is, or neurodiverse, then you know that you're safe to come here. Even though you would be anyway, you'd know because you'd got a little thing on a website going, that one's all right.
Yeah,
questions
the church gets added to a register.
I'm just really confused, because shouldn't every church just be like that regardless?
Yes, they should,
Yes.
but not every church joins up.
Which
You
is
would
why
like
the
to
fact
think-
there's a register shows you that it isn't. The fact that we have to do it is kind of sad.
God willing, one day we won't need inclusive church registers. Yes,
Two behind
question.
you. Oh,
Here and then here.
You touched on it already with the same-sex marriage thing, but do you envisage any other conflicts between what inclusive church is and what the Church of England kind of mandates the church to do?
Other than the same-sex marriage stuff, do we envisage any conflict between what the Church of England is and does and mandates and the inclusive church mission? No. Apart from that the Church of England is traditionally not good at change. So the Church of England will say, we need to be dementia-friendly, but not help us with liturgy that is dementia-friendly, things like that. But theologically, they're joined up with that. So the more we try and do those things, yeah. I mean, my position at the moment, and with many inclusive church members, is that I think the Church of England is wrong about same-sex marriage. And whether or not we join inclusive church, I still think that. And I'm just happy to still be in the Church of England and arguing with them in the same way as for many years people who thought women should be getting ordained were still happy to join the Church of England and think they were wrong about that and argue for change. It seems like a similar trajectory to that. But otherwise, no, the Church of England is for everybody. It's a very parish thing. There are some churches, Baptist churches, Methodist churches, who can afford to pick and choose their members. We're the parish church. If you live in Calverley, we're for you. So I think we should be inclusive of everyone. That's that. Simon.
Yeah, sort of following on from what you've just said, how long do we kind of sign up for?
You sign up and you pay an annual subscription.
So
as long as you
if
want.
we didn't pay 1 year, we would suddenly not be an inclusive
They
church.
take you off the register.
They'd take you off
Yeah.
the register, yeah.
Yeah, the
okay.
whole point is that you're going on a register so that, and it's on the internet, so that people that are thinking of moving to Calverley or they're thinking of going to a university at Leeds and they want to find a church where they're accepted for who they are, they'll look on the register and your church will
So
pop up
how
on the
long
register.
has the whole movement been going?
Oh,
2003 it started.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
sometime.
just interesting that Phil never mentioned it at all.
Oh, wow.
So,
small and it's growing.
It's growing bigger now because of
Yeah,
the contentiousness.
but the other potential problem would obviously be, Rob, if you left and we then had to look for another vicar.
It
As a
would go-
PCC,
so-
would we need
Yeah.
to look for a
So
vicar
you're
who would
going
be
into- I'll put my
signed
LED
up to
now.
the whole inclusive church thing?
I'll put the LED net on if you want. What will happen is, if your PCC agree to it and Rob moves on, when you do your parish profile, you would put in your parish profile, our church is an inclusive church. And we would expect the next incumbent to agree with the PCC's decision.
Yeah.
That's what you would do. You make it clear in your profile.
Yeah, I think that's really important
Yeah.
because I don't think...
It's very difficult, otherwise
Yeah, because
the PCC
change
want one
happens
thing
a
and-
lot and new vicars
Yeah.
come in with new ideas and we've obviously... Well, me and Kim and Harriet have been here quite some time, so we've seen lots of different things.
But, I mean, they thought about putting that we're an inclusive church on the profile when you guys advertised for me. And 3 years ago today, I came. And they didn't because area dean people going, that doesn't mean what you think it means. You can't just say we're welcoming. It means you're a member of this thing. But it would have... Yeah, I'd have been jumping up and down to apply for this and looking out for it if it had said that. But all it will mean is when you come to replace me, the PCC can decide. You can come off it at that point. If you go, no, we're not an inclusive church anymore, well, you could take it off. But it does mean that if you say we want an inclusive church type vicar, the area dean at the time or the bishop can't turn up and say, you shouldn't have one of these people. It means that you've got something written down to say, no, this is where we stand. So it gives you leverage if you want it, and you can opt out at that point. Power remains with the PCC. Sue had something to say. What are you going to add?
David behind you.
David.
Sorry to be a bit cynical, but if we don't lob in our 500 quid, we won't be integral or inclusive. We shall be excluded. It's almost a bit like the schism in the...
It's £5.
£5.
£5, not 500. 5 to 500.
Oh, I thought you said 500.
Well, at St James's we pay 500, but you can pay from £5 up to 500. So that's a PCC decision that makes that decision tomorrow.
Rather than, the problem is it's another body, and I see there's a danger in, you're a good Church of England person if you're inclusive, and if you're not, you're a bit like a primitive Methodist or whatever.
All Methodist church are all inclusive anyway, so that's by the by, isn't it? And they've been doing same-sex marriages for the last 5 years, so
okay.
So that's but we're talking about specifically the parish church and the Church of England, and this is where we're at. We're at this crossroads of all these decisions that have been made. But in the meantime, we've got masses of people on the fringes of society that surround this church who want to come but feel they don't belong. So so joining an organisation that's got a wealth and depth of experience of that and using their resources to try and reach those people, why would that not be a good thing?
Thank you. I think
we need to start moving things. If we've got more questions, write them down, and I will take them up with you individually, or we'll bring them to PCC, because these are. I don't want to leave your questions, but we can't address them now because it's been longer than you would think. And David, talk to me about care homes afterwards, because we've run a little over, but it would. Yeah, I take your point. We need to include care homes, and I would say to David's question, we would have to try not to be prejudiced about people who weren't in it, right? But that's about how we're gracious towards other people around us. That's all right. So, yeah, hold us accountable for not being divisive about our inclusivity, because that would be missing the point.
Thank you very much, Tracy.